Welcome back to Creating Cooperative Kids. I'm your host, Bill Corbett. We've all brought wonderful children's books to read to our children that had encouraging messages we wanted them to hear. But I had never seen a book that contained a message that moved children to examine how wonderful their parents were. Diane Darin is a mother with 2 grown sons and a grandmother of 2 little girls ages 5 and 18 months. She's also the author of the children's book, And the Winner Is, and is working on a second book titled, Who Do You Tell, that handles the topic of child abuse. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thanks, Bill.
So I was really intrigued with your book because a lot of times there's wonderful messages that teach children things about morality, about becoming a better person and standing firm and not letting their peers or other influences bother them. But yours was a different book because when I was reading through it, I was looking for that lesson. And I'm reading through it, and I read it a second time, and I go, where's the lesson? I go, oh, the lesson. The lesson is about the parents that we have. And we can look at the individual all we want, but sometimes we don't stand back and take a look at the parents and all that they did to get the child to where they are.
Right.
So
we don't.
So how did you come up with this message? What was your original intention in creating this?
I listened on the radio to the results of a study. I think it was National Geographic that did it, and the idea was to find out who among the animals made the best parents. An innocuous enough topic, I thought, but intriguing. And when I found that the elephant came out on top, it was just amazing to me. With all the detail, they measured the nutrition and education and extended family members who step in and take care of the kids if should anything befall the mom and dad.
So the power of what the elephant parents do in raising the
What do they know that we don't know? I don't recall humans even placing, by the way, but
but what's great is what I liked is you created the whole issue of, when we rate each other and we grade other people, it's let's not lose sight of the fact is to the nurturing that went on.
Yeah.
It's not just about the nature.
Right. And the topics that came up most frequently were those 2 that I listed toward the back of the book. Unconditional love was huge, and you mentioned that a couple of times in your programs, I've noticed. And emotional health, guarding their emotional health.
Well,
and who thinks of elephants doing that?
What's interesting is that many of us were raised with conditional love, and again, I always say, this isn't about faulting our parents. Or somehow our parents thought they were supposed to do what they did. Mm-hmm. So we need to just forgive and move on. But the problem is we've been raised with conditional love. That
Absolutely.
means we are calm, we are kind, we are loving when our children are easy to take care of, when they're cooperative, when they're behaving the way we want them to.
Right.
The real challenge is to be that way even when they're not, right?
Right, and that's the whole crux of the issue of unconditional love. It's the business of separating the child from the behavior. They're 2 separate entities altogether. And the child needs and craves that getting that idea through his or her head that it's the act, not the child, that you're upset with.
And I think a lot of parents say, okay, easier said than done.
Right.
When I've worked a 10-hour shift, I don't know if I can pay the rent.
Right.
And my child is acting a little crazy,
Mm-hmm.
a little silly, that's just annoying, it gets under your skin. And how do you generate or conjure up enough spirit and energy to love unconditionally? And I'm always encouraging parents, you know what, if you can't transition, if it's hard for you to not pass on that what you're feeling to your children, it's a sign that you got to take better care of yourself. You know what? Walk away, take a deep breath, calm down, count to 10, take a walk. Because if we just give it 5 minutes, we come back, it already looks different,
sure.
Right?
And Dr. William Glasser, I think his name is, who's written so much on this, constantly reminding you that it's a head thing first. You have to cognitively get it through your head that this is what you're going to do, and your heart will catch up. He says, think unconditional love, and think about how it divides child behavior. Just get it in your head and your heart will come along.
So I'm going to ask the control room to throw the graphic up so folks can see what your book looks like, your book cover. Why did you write it? We understand what's behind it, but why did you write it? Why did you set out to do that?
Well, it was originally just a poem. I have a book of poetry, and I was ready to add another one to it because I thought what a grand thing to be the best at, parenting. I'm aware of a few of my foibles and things that I wish I'd done a little differently. And I'm sure that goes with parenting, right?
Yeah.
But when I saw it in print, it just, it spoke to me. I thought it needed to be its own little book.
Yeah.
And I had a board book in mind, so.
So with parents that are tuned in and listening to you right now, what can parents do to protect their children's emotional health? What kind of things can they do?
Funny you should ask. There's another fellow, Dr. Gerald Newmark, and his books are so worth reading. And he narrows it down. I've got a note here about that. So that whatever it takes, he says, you do whatever it takes to leave your child with a feeling that he or she is respected, important, accepted, included, and secure. Whatever you have to do, do it.
But this isn't the last book. You're working on another one?
Yeah, I've got the second one in the works. I happen to be acquainted with a number of people in the business of taking care of children. Unfortunately, this is mostly disturbed kids who've had a rough start. And they all agree on the topic of abuse, early abuse, that the biggest problem is kids don't tell. And I hear it every night on the news. I hear it every night. Kids don't tell. They assume the blame, they think it's their fault for whatever reason, and they don't tell. Sometimes the perpetrator of the abuse has said that he'll harm their family. You've heard these stories. So getting kids to tell, he said that would get the perpetrator off the streets earlier, that would get the victim back on the couch before she's 35 and making her third bad decision. And that would be the key. So there I found this little rhyme in my head again, and it's like this book, it's in rhyme, and it's going to be a board book, and it's called Who Do You Tell? So it starts off innocuously enough with when you taste a good taste or you smell a good smell. Who is it that you share it with? And it goes on to hurt feelings and skin knees, and it never goes quite beyond that. It's mostly promise. And in the middle of the book, there's a number of people to pick from. There are tall people and short people and people next door and people at school. Pick one. And at the very end, it's hopefully going to work, I'm convinced, because it's a contract of sorts. At the very end, it says, so whether it's something of terror or something of cheer, pick who you'll tell and write it right here.
One small step in putting books out, it can change one person's life, one person's journey.
It's going to have
a pen.
a pen
So I really appreciate you doing that.
Thank
the book
you.
is, and the winner is, and find that for your kids. It's an awesome book to send an important message. Thank you so much for coming out and being on the show today.
Thank you, Bill. It's a great show you have.
Thank you. We know that reading to children is an important part of a child's development, but who is doing the reading is just as important. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2011, only 2.3% of all preschool and kindergarten teachers were male. In my next segment, we'll meet two male teachers who will share with us why more men teachers are needed in the world of education. Stay with me through the break to find out more. We'll be right back.